And I'm Keon.
And this is Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast. That podcast where we recast the main actor for the week. Because this week we watched Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling.
Written by Vincent Tillsley.
Directed by Pat Jackson.
And aired on December 22nd, 1967. Nice Christmas episode for The Prisoner.
I'm about to make the exact same statement. Just a nice little Christmas special of The Prisoner.
No, this episode has nothing to do with Christmas whatsoever. As far as I could tell.
As far as you know. No, I don't know.
What this episode does have to do with, though, is, again, behind-the-scenes strife. And, yeah, just behind-the-scenes strife.
Lots and lots of behind-the-scenes strife. Just lots of it. Just all of the strife.
Yeah, so I don't know how much you looked up, but I found out quite a bit, which potentially explains why this is probably one of the least enjoyable Prisoner episodes.
Well, I know that Vincent Tillsley wrote this episode and just didn't even like the premise of the episode at all. And he even admitted that this is like the worst thing to do, is to write a story or a script when you are not sold on the idea, when you just think that the idea is terrible and just a complete waste of time. But he did it anyway because they were paying him and they were literally desperate to get to 17 episodes.
He said it was all he could think of.
Yeah.
This is the point in the show's history when, and I feel like there are disputes over this because I don't think we've really even done a dive into this sort of I don't know, rescheduling that went on, but like apparently this is the point in the series, or when this episode's being written is the point in the series that The Prisoner went from having another season being commissioned to just having 4 more episodes tacked onto the 13 to finish the first season and just end the show.
Yeah. Apparently the original script of this was pretty different to the final script that was filmed.
One of the big differences I found is that like the original actually gives the date of number 6's resignation, which was supposed to be July 13th.
Wikipedia has a whole long thing outlining the original script, because apparently they published the original script as part of The Prisoner, the original scripts series. And it outlines like all the differences between the filming version and the original script. Apparently the Colonel was called Oscar in the original version.
Huh.
And it's not until he gets to the office to resign that he realizes that he's not Patrick McGoohan, I guess.
This episode apparently had the lowest ratings of any Prisoner episode.
Well, I mean, they did write out Patrick McGoohan for a week, which I'm honestly kind of impressed that they were even able to do.
And A Change of Mind is not a very good episode, so maybe people just didn't tune in for this one.
Yeah, that's probably more likely, if we're being honest. People watched A Change of Mind and they were like, wow. Just wow. I'm not going to tune in next week. Screw that.
Yeah, I read also that one of the reasons why McGoohan isn't in this episode is because he was actually doing Ice Station Zebra, that movie that came out in 1968.
Yeah, that's what I read.
Yeah, so kind of just like they have the Dr. Light episode on Doctor Who. Check out Trust Your Doctor, a Doctor Who podcast. You get a Prisoner Light episode of The Prisoner.
Just the fact that they were even able to pull that off is mind-blowing.
Yeah, they didn't really pull it off to a good extent, though. Like, they didn't really...
But they did it. They succeeded in creating an episode around it, so therefore they pulled it off by the bare minimum metric required.
I guess so. I guess you're right. This is also the point in the show where a lot of the principal, like, people involved in creating the show are no longer part of the show or have moved into different roles. Like, I believe this is the first episode broadcast order where Patrick McGoohan is not listed as an executive producer.
Take that, Patrick McGoohan.
George Markstein is also completely gone at this point, which is, in a way, that's actually reflected in the episode in a really meta way where, like, you have the same events of the intro sequence where, you know, in the intro, Patrick McGoohan barges into the office and it's George Markstein sitting at the table. And here, in this episode, you get that exact same thing, but it's not Patrick McGoohan, it's not George Markstein.
Yeah, it's the most like bizarre knockoff version of this scene I've ever seen. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I loved it though.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of added another layer to the episode.
I almost wish that, actually not almost, I do wish that the episode opened not with the stupid little cold open thing, but with the intro. But it's actually. Oh gosh, what was his name? Nigel Stock. And whoever they had at the desk. Like, I wish it would just throw you into that. And you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, that would have been extremely confusing.
Oh, man. And then, yeah, no, I really do feel that they play their hand too early now that I think about it, because then it could have just, like, the part where number 6 wakes up in the intro sequence, that could have been number 6 waking up in London in his new body and just kind of throwing you in, not knowing what's going on, and then you use the rest of the episode to build the mystery and then explain all of that. I feel that that would have been a much more compelling way to deliver this story than what we actually got, because I think they just kind of play their hand too early. You know too much right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, they opened with that cold open, and I was like, is this like, am I watching like a weird bootleg version of this episode? Like what's going on here?
Yeah, it doesn't really even explain much. It's a bunch of guys sitting in a sort of ornate looking room. They're going through a slideshow of images, and they're implying that there's some sort of secret code hidden in the images.
Right.
Then you just get thrown right into the intro sequence.
Yeah, the scene tells you nothing and everything at the same time.
It makes sense what they're doing at the end, but yeah.
Yeah, but you have no idea who these people are. You have no comprehension of why they're important, why this mysterious salesman is important. You know, what's going on? What's going on? Then we get the title sequence. So while looking up stuff for this episode, I discovered that there's a band. I don't know if you discovered them, Keon. There's a band called Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling.
Oh, no. I don't know anything about this.
Los Angeles based, and their songs are all inspired by the 60s cult spy-fi TV show The Prisoner. That's a direct quote off their website, by the way.
Nice.
And that's in a way insanely meta, because the name of this episode isn't even original to this episode. It's taken from the theme song to the movie High Noon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how many layers deep are we here? Which layer of the Matrix are we on now?
Apparently this band, they recreated, I think, at least the opening to the show. Yeah, they recreated the opening titles with the two band members. And they did a really, really good job of it, by the way. Like, really good. And apparently it won the most creative video. It was the number 6 most creative video of the year in 2011, according to Time Magazine.
Huh, yeah, I'll drop it in the show notes. If I can find it, which I'm pretty sure I will be able to.
Well, I'll just drop the link to it, to their website on the show notes, because they've got literally a whole page, like, behind the scenes of their shot-for-shot remake of the opening, and they, like, even found a Lotus that's exactly identical to McGoohan's, and, like, yeah, it's really impressive. I mean, they didn't film it on the exact same street that the actual opening is filmed on, but the level of detail that they went through to recreate it is quite impressive.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Anyway, there's also a weird meta thing where I think in their recreation of the opening title sequence, the band member, because there's only really two people, the band member who plays number 2 also plays the George Markstein character that number 6 resigns to, which is like, that's a weird meta thing to think about.
Yeah, you could pull that off, actually, because I don't think they actually appear kind of in the same shot together, at least with both of their faces towards the camera.
Anyway, now I guess we can get right into the episode.
Yeah, you dive right into the episode, and this week's number 2, who is probably the least charismatic number 2 ever, invites the Colonel to his dome.
Honestly, I kind of love how completely non-charismatic he is, though. He's so blunt, it's actually really entertaining.
The Colonel shows up. They obviously have some history together. And they start watching number 2 over the video feed. Or number 6, my bad. Weirdly, number 2 asks him what he thinks of number 6. And he's like, well, anyone who does that is like an idiot or something. But what number 6 was eating, right? Like, that's all he was doing in the video.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that comment in reference to? Like, anyone who eats is stupid?
I think that is supposed to be in reference to something like his continued disobeying of the village's policies and laws.
Probably, you're right.
One of my notes here is like, do we know where Seltzman is? Because to remind myself that that's who they're looking for is Seltzman, but I spelled Seltzman way the heck wrong. I spelled Seltzman way wrong. S-L-T-A-Z-M.
Wait. What? Salmon?
I spelled it Slitazman. I think my right hand was moving way quicker than my left hand when I was typing. I spelled it right later on when they said that his full name is Jacob Seltzman. S-E-L-T-A-Z.
Well, they explain who Seltzman is right now. He's sort of this guy, this neuroscientist who created a machine that is able to transfer minds from one body to another.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't believe the machine exists.
But surprise, it does.
Or that if it exists, that it works.
And they're right. It actually doesn't.
And they were right. It was all for nothing. Well, at the end of the episode, they also heavily imply that Seltzman was a Nazi scientist, which I thought was very spicy.
Yeah, kind of, now that you mention it. I didn't even pick up on that, but yeah, you're right.
It's actually my favorite scene in the whole episode, actually, when Seltzman goes, now I am doing the dictating, and number 2 goes just very casually like, Heil.
Yeah, because that's the one thing in the episode that doesn't, like, spell it out for you. The rest of this is just, I don't know, it's too straightforward in a way.
Yeah, in a way.
Because, again, I totally think that, like, having this entire intro and introducing the mind transference thing, like, imagine if they just threw you in with number 6 waking up in someone else's body back in London as if this never happened. And
I mean, I agree. That definitely, well, probably would have been more entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, you can still mess that premise up. Definitely, the execution can go off the rails, easily. But like, I don't know. I feel like you should try.
Might as well try, right? Might as well try.
So of course they're going to use this thing on number 6. They're not going to introduce it and then not use it on him.
I mean, they could have, and that would have also been pretty funny. It's just like they were looking for this guy who invented this mind swap machine, and then they just never mentioned it again.
But we get a scene of number 6 being dragged out of his house.
Kicking and screaming.
Mm-hmm.
Although not really, he's knocked out. As usual, they'd probably use the hairdressing machine on him again.
Probably. There's a funny moment here where number 2 and the colonel walk into a room and number 2 says, "We call this our amnesia room," but the sign on the door says examination room.
Well, maybe they don't want people to know that they have amnesia tech. You know, they don't want people to know that they have retcon in the village.
Yeah, and it's weird too because they're just using this room to house the mind transfer machine, which doesn't really seem to have anything to do with amnesia other than causing, like, you know, the confusion that similar to what amnesia could cause.
Right. Very odd. Very odd.
But anyway, they bring number 6 in and they transfer his mind with the colonel's.
You know, the other thing about the amnesia room, which is related to this mind transference, is that they erase number 6's knowledge of the village, and then they send number 6 out into the world, and then at the end of the episode, they bring him back, but I never saw any indication that they, like, unerased his knowledge of the village. Also, this amnesia machine kind of can play into my, like, the loop resets every week, because maybe they just erase number 6's memory of the previous week's events, like, every week. But anyway, my thing is, like, is the number 6 at the end of this episode just completely brand new to the village? He's like, I don't even know where we are. I don't remember anything of the past year that I've spent here.
I don't think so.
But it is interesting to think about. Interesting to think about.
The next episode...
So they swap their minds,
episode... It's like doesn't actually well, this isn't really a spoiler, it doesn't touch on that, but it's so like wild and out there that it doesn't touch on it. I mean, it wouldn't anyway. Okay. But it's so just wait until next week. Next episode is like mind-blowing.
All right. Probably going to be really underwhelmed again.
Probably.
But if you say I should be waiting in anticipation, then I will, I guess.
Anyway, what the hell was the village's plan here? Because what they do is they like you said, they send number 6 back to his actual home with his memories of the village wiped.
Well, I think the plan is they don't like have the reverse process. So they're kind of insane when you really think about it. Plan here is to mind warp number 6, and then once they've mind warped number 6, dump him back in the real world, so that he's forced to find Seltzman to get the reverse process out of him.
Yeah, because not a
great
as
plan.
As we learn later, number 6 was actually the one with the secret code slide things that reveal Seltzman's location. So I guess they could have gotten that some other way.
Well, he got them back from the agency he used to work for because they returned them when they realized that number 6 was looking for them at the photo shop. So they returned them to him, to the shop actually. And then because there's that line from whoever the heck the head of the agency is this week, where he says something like, so there was a secret message in the slides. My people were just not able to find it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they were close. But also, like, this plan hinges on the fact that Seltzman is just, like, not dead. But really, it's been a year since number 6 last saw Seltzman, at least. Like, it'd be really awkward to body swap number 6, and then, like, he goes to find Seltzman, and Seltzman's just dead, and number 6 is like, well, shoot. Well, shoot.
It was kind of implied, too, that, like, Seltzman was actually under village surveillance, which makes you wonder, like, if that's the case, then this entire plan is actually runs deeper than what we could ever know.
Well, the whole plot is just a mess.
I mean, it's kind of
The whole thing's just a mess.
there's kind of some. I know I said it was straightforward, but now thinking about it, there's some mystery to it. Like it's as if it's too like clean. I don't know.
It's I think it gets lost because clearly the what's the word I'm looking for? The agency that Six worked for originally is also looking for Saltzman. And so that whole thing getting wrapped up in the plot to me, and also there's an implication that that agency is working with the village because the people in that agency call him number 6 in the very first scene of the episode, which how would they even know if they didn't know about the village
that's
already?
pretty obvious given some other episodes.
Of course, but I don't know. I just find that it's unclear which of the two is like really driving the plot forward here and what's going on, and I don't know. I found it kind of messy.
Well, one other, maybe Prisoner fans would call this a sin, and I would say it comes close to it, but like, and we're getting this now as number 6 wakes up in his new body in his house, which is that like this episode more so than any other reveals number 6's life.
Yeah, we meet a fiancé we've never heard of before.
And we'll never hear of again.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
Which makes you question like how real is any of this?
Maybe none of it is real.
Number 6's mind has been altered. Maybe the machine can like implant memories or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and
maybe they were all village plants.
Like I was wondering how different would the reverse process even really be? Like wouldn't it just be swap the minds back? Like
yeah, that's why the entire plan almost makes me think that this was somehow just a cover for like something that we as viewers are like not seeing in the episode. But maybe that's just a cover for the fact that there is no secret agenda or anything like that. I don't know, man. I feel like you have to do your own like spy work to even get anything out of some of these episodes.
Yes. Yes. You have to dig deep into Prisoner lore this week.
Well, number 6 goes and in a first-person shot checks his little agenda. Then goes out into the hallway and sees his fiancée. She's like, who are you? How'd you get in here?
He's like, I'm a friend of the owner. And she's like, even his car is back. And I'm like, wait, what happened to his car while he was in the village?
They must have taken it away to make it seem like he had gone on some trip or something. At this point, number 6 has already looked in a mirror and, knows that his face is not his own.
Yeah. And there's some voiceovers that I guess are supposed to be his internal monologue.
Yeah, his inner thoughts there.
Which is that, like, his handwriting didn't change, which is interesting.
Yep. Handwriting is the same. So at this point we get like a little recreation of the intro sequence. Because number 6 goes into his former office.
Right.
He tries to convince them of what happened. Nobody's buying it. So he goes to see what's-his-face. Shoot, I didn't write it down. Darn it.
Who are we talking about?
He goes to see his fiance's dad, who his former boss must be real awkward.
I think his fiance's Janet.
Yeah, so the fiancée is Janet. She had a last name, which is the same last name as this guy, who is number 6's former boss.
Let me see. I've got the IMDb page still open.
Yeah, I have it on
Portland.
Wikipedia. Yeah, Portland. Real interesting and probably awkward situation to be in where you're like dating your boss's daughter.
Not only dating, but are engaged.
Yeah, right,
Too.
engaged. Yeah.
I found that extremely suspect. But, alright.
Again, they don't believe him. He tries to get them on his side by revealing like top secret information that only he could know. And they're like, well, maybe you just got that by like torturing number 6 and getting the info out of him. So we're going to start watching you now. He's like, darn.
I found this scene very odd. Where the guy was just like, you didn't convince me that you're number 6. But you know what you did convince me is that I should put you under surveillance. And number 6 just goes, thank you. Except he doesn't deliver it in a way that like the real number 6 would be like really sarcastic, like, thank you. Who plays Nigel Stark just goes, thank you, as if he's like genuinely thankful that the guy's going to put him under surveillance now.
Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of the sites that I checked as sources this week kind of had the same thought that I had, which is that Nigel Stock is not the best guy for this job.
But who could live up to Patrick McGoohan in the role of number 6, though? Probably really no one.
No one. And I think perhaps like having someone as pretty diametrically opposed to Patrick McGoohan as Nigel Stock is in the way he portrays the character was even good for this episode, because it just, I don't know, it makes you... It really clues you in. If the appearance didn't already, it really clues you into the fact that something's wrong here.
Mm-hmm.
And it is definitely interesting that, like, as soon as you get an episode that doesn't heavily feature Patrick McGoohan, like, and I do think that him not being the main character of the episode is a big, like, detractor.
Right.
So in a way, he is definitely, we joke about, like, him taking full creative control and, like, all his behind-the-scenes shenanigans, but in a way, he's the one making the show what it is and making it enjoyable by playing this character.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Alas. There were though moments. There were moments that I thought he did pull off the number 6 character. Not a lot, but there were a few where he kind of got the intonation and the delivery and the gruffness right. Not many of them, but they were there. They were there. So anyway, he then decides to go get the... Well, so basically, apparently, it just happens to be Janet's birthday, like, that day or the next day. So he goes to her birthday party to get something that he had left with her as Patrick McGoohan originally. And she gives it to him. He gives her a message, which is he kisses the side of her face. I find it... I am extremely incredulous that number 6 had a fiance, given the way he treats like every woman in the village ever. But anyway,
yeah, that's another reason why this episode doesn't, like, there's just something off about it with, like, the backstory we get for him. Like, it just doesn't seem right.
Yeah, a lot of places I looked at called into question the fiance thing, especially in regards to Many Happy Returns, because you would think that in that episode where he actually makes it all the way back to London in his own body, that you would think one of the first people he would contact is his fiancée.
Yeah, kind of does make me think that all these memories were, like, altered and that all these people are just village plants. The village...
I mean, it's entirely possible. Again, like, we don't have any evidence to dispute that.
The village is also watching him at the same time as his organization is, and they're doing a way better job of it, because throughout the next part of the episode, you see number 6 being surveilled by the guy who Portland said was going to be tailing him, but you also see the top hat guy who gasses number 6 in the intro sequence surveilling number 6, and number 6 is not onto this guy whatsoever, whereas he is onto the guy that Portland sent.
Great. Great.
Even though top hat guy is being pretty conspicuous about it too.
Yeah, you think number 6 would recognize him, but I guess he never really saw the guy who kidnapped him to take him to the village in the first place.
No, because he just puts the nozzle into the little keyhole and gasses the room that way.
So, number 6 goes to get gets the photographs he had left with this photo lab. And I was incredibly incredulous about this too, because the photo lab I used to develop my photos destroys negatives after 90 days if you haven't picked them up. Just because like that'd be a massive storage problem if you just stored every negative ever beyond like that amount of time.
Yeah, that's why their shop was so packed to the brim.
They're just using literally every ounce of free space as storage.
So he gets the photos and he decodes the secret message that he left and figures out that Seltzman is in, hold on, I wrote it down, Kondersfeld, Austria.
Like, the fact that he's in Austria kind of also playing into that potential Nazi scientist thing going on here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this Nazi thing reminds me a lot of Doctor Strangelove, where the eponymous... How do you actually say that word?
Eponymous. Yep.
Doctor Strangelove is heavily implied to be a Nazi scientist, but never outright stated. But very near the end, he slips up and goes, Heil Hitler. So, but they never actually say he worked for the Nazis. Actually, I don't think he says Heil Hitler. I think, if I remember correctly, he actually says like Heil the Führer or something.
Mm-hmm. Maybe he was hailing Fear Her, the Doctor Who episode, and hailing it as the best Doctor Who episode ever made.
Look, I don't trust anyone who puts Fear Her anywhere in the top 50% of Doctor Who episodes. I immediately think they might be a sociopath. / psychopath.
Wow. Well, okay then. Throughout all of this, the scenes of number 6 driving around are like not from this episode. They're like footage from other episodes because it's very clearly Patrick McGoohan in the car.
Well, I love when they reuse the title sequence, and it's so obvious they're reusing the title sequence because they leave in all the lightning sound effects and the background music. Mm-hmm. Which is... Really?
But it's not the same background music. It's like slightly off. Parts of the song are slightly changed.
Well, but they still leave in the lightning sound effects, so... And also, the poor guy who took George Markstein's place knocks over his teacup, or at least spills tea all over the saucer while trying to hit the button to call the superior.
Yeah, I mean, we can't all be as smooth as Markstein. Anyway, the next part of the episode just cuts to a montage of driving in Austria and being tailed by the organization. Got some stereotypical music, got some stereotypical villages. It's all there.
It's really interesting when 6 pulls into this village and the guy at the restaurant goes, "Welcome to the village, sir. What would you like?" And I was like,
That's one of the biggest things that makes me think this entire thing that we're seeing is somehow a village plot. Like,
what if this is just another village? What if there's more than one village around the world?
Yeah, that's what.
And this is village 2.
That's what Boz kind of not hinted at, but like wondered about in a Facebook comment. Like, what if there are 17 different villages?
Why? 17 because different village every episode.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. What if this is the multiverse? This is just 17 different Earths.
Oh my god. Yeah, what if that's what this whole surveillance room is? They're like surveilling the other Earths, the other artificial Earths that they've created to
Oh,
conduct
jeez.
experiments. What if this is way?
Oh,
Well, yeah. What if
jeez.
this is like like 39, 60, whatever 7, and not in like 1967?
I mean, it could be. It could be. I mean, we have no proof that it's not.
That
We have
actually,
no
that
proof.
idea actually makes some stuff that we're about to see in the upcoming episodes make more sense than they would if it was actually just a singular 1967 Earth. Just gonna say that.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. That's
Wow.
all I have to say about that. It's interesting.
So, uh, Seltzman is using the alias of um, Helen.
Amazing.
As a last name, I believe. And he's a barber now. Whoa,
Yep.
whoa, wait, hang on a minute. Hold on. Whoa,
Yep. 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 Yep.
whoa,
Did we
whoa.
accidentally stumble upon something by suggesting number 6 used to be a barber? Potentially. Potentially.
How did I not realize this when watching the episode? Whoa. Just for the record, unlike the other episodes that we've been watching, I had zero memory of this. Even when I started watching it, I didn't remember this one whatsoever. So
That's because of the memory erasing thing in the end credits.
so there was no hint of any of this when I suggested or when we suggested that number 6 could have been a barber. I wasn't looking forward to this in any way.
Mm-hmm.
Dang. Wow. Well,
Number 6 a barber, potentially confirmed.
have we cracked the code, the prisoner code?
People have been trying to figure this out for 50 years, but we are the lucky
Exactly.
few who figured it out.
Quote, every person who's ever watched The Prisoner.
We figured it out. It was us.
Anyway, number 6 reveals who he is, and Helen slash Seltzman says that like the only way he would believe him is if his handwriting matched a letter that he was sent a year ago.
And apparently, Salzman was such a good friend of number 6 that he kept this letter for over a year.
Right. And if you look on the letter, I don't know if you noticed, but if you pause when number 6 is opening the letter, or when the letter is like on screen in full view, the address is Port Marion.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's weird. That's very
Yep.
weird.
Or
Suspicious.
I don't think it was Port Marion. It was Port Marion Road in some city or something. So it wasn't the actual Port Marion.
Still
it was
low.
like, yeah, would have been weird if they actually had put it as Port Marion, which means like Seltzman was maybe staying in Port Marion or something.
Well, so the writing is nearly identical, which I was extremely surprised by because even when I'm writing things again, like I can never get anything to be identical to a previous time I've written it down.
Yeah.
And right at that moment, the tail arrives, I guess, and they kind of try to, you know,
Yeah, a little
defeat him,
scuffle.
but only to fail and get
Yeah, because
gassed
Top Hat
again.
guy comes in and just gasses them again. Brings them all back to the village.
And this is when Saltzman's like, I'm not going to do this. And then number two's like, I mean, you owe number six something, right? Like, the only reason he's in the wrong body is because you invented this process. And then Saltzman's like, fine, I'll do it under one condition. I do the dictating now. And this is when number two goes, Heil. So the casual way number two does it gets me every time. He just goes, Heil.
Well, when you put it that way.
Well, when you put it that way, you make a convincing argument. And so Saltzman performs the process. Apparently, he's using himself in the process as well. I don't think he actually says that he's going to do this. Apparently, in the original version of the script, he makes it more explicit that the reversal process requires a third person as an intermediary, which is, of course, proven to be completely false pretty quickly here.
Because what happens at the end is number two questions Saltzman a little bit and then just sends him on his way, sends him on a helicopter out of the village. Number six wakes up back in his own body, presumably. Presumably this isn't the Colonel.
It seems like it.
And he's like, yo, like, that wasn't the Colonel.
Yeah. Yeah, he put his own brain into the Colonel's body. And then Saltzman wakes up and says something like, tell number one I did my duty. And then he dies. Rip the Colonel. I guess Saltzman just inadvertently also invented immortality here.
Yeah, I guess. And then we see number six's face slammed in by the bars. Yet again.
Yeah, and like, maybe this is a bad segue or a good segue, but immediately, like, right off the bat, I had no idea whether to classify this as a win or a loss for number six because the plot is so far removed from number six at all.
Yeah, we're in the out there stages of the show now where it's like basically the entire premise of the show has been completely abandoned and they're just doing these weird ass experiments every week.
I mean, why not, I suppose?
I guess if I had to say this was a win or a loss, I'd say it's a win because the village gets screwed in the end. So, hey, even if it wasn't number six's doing, I guess that's how I'm classifying it now.
I kind of feel like, though, even everybody got screwed, including number six, though. I think we have to, like, decide if when we say things are wins for number six, does that just mean it's a loss for the village? Because I think number six gets kind of screwed here too. I mean, he gets taken out of the village, meets his fiance, and then just gets taken right back to the village. And not only that, he leads them straight to Saltzman, who then just screws him over and leaves. And like, he'll probably never be seen again.
Yeah, true. It is a pretty big loss for number six in that sense.
So,
yeah, I just have no idea then.
Who knows? I don't know. Who knows? Does it even matter is the question. Probably not.
I really had no idea who number one could possibly be.
I don't even know if number one would have appeared in this. Clearly not the Colonel, because the Colonel's like, tell number one, I did my job.
Maybe it's Saltzman himself? I don't know how that would work, but...
Possibly. I don't know how that would work. It just seemed
like in the end he comes out of this as being the most in charge, so...
He's just like, ha ha ha, I'm getting away. Number
one resigns. That's how the show ends. That's actually how the show ends. Is they're like, behind this door lies number one. We've stopped number two. We've put an end to the village. Nothing stands in our way from figuring out who number one is, the mastermind behind it all. And they just walk into the room and it's a filing cabinet with the word resigned.
Honestly, that'd be just hilarious.
Number one has already fled the country, has already been abducted into another village. But yeah, so one thing I kind of wanted to talk about here, I know we have other segments to do, and this is kind of breaking it up, but yeah, one thing that I really thought was interesting about this episode was that, like, the scene where number 6 in the Colonel's body and I forget who it was, the guy who was taking him to see Portland, when they were going up that elevator and then when they were walking through the halls, the way that's all shot and the way that's all done looks so modern that I have a hard time even watching it, and even knowing that it's from the 60s, I have a hard time accepting that it's from the 60s. Like, just the building, just the how the people look, their clothes, the way it's all shot, it just looks like it was made, like, today, like this year.
Kind of plays into the weird, like, out of time aspect of the whole show.
It's really only the music in that scene that feels very 60s-ish. But yeah, I liked seeing that, I guess. This show does have the cinematography of, like, a modern show most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, part of that is also, like, it being shot on film so we can get this nice HD Blu-ray scans compared to most of the other things from the 60s, which are these hilarious low-budget nonsense.
Yeah, part of it's that. Part of it is just I guess, I don't even know what else you'd call it in one word, but, like, the artistry of how it was all made.
I don't really have much to say on it.
Yeah, neither do I. I just kind of wanted to bring up that one scene. I'll see if if I can find that scene isolated, if anyone's, like, I don't know, uploaded it to YouTube or something.
You could always just upload it yourself and break copyright law.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't think it would be too hard to download Shout Factory's videos, so.
Yeah, I actually really don't have much to talk about for this.
Yeah, again, I don't think it was as weak as A Change of Mind, but I would put it on one of the bottom rungs of episodes we've watched so far.
I do think it has some interesting ideas with the mind warping going on. Mind warp is just a synonym for mind swapping now.
Yeah,
for me.
thanks to mind warp.
Yeah, thanks to mind warp. But I do think it has some interesting ideas, and they could have done some stuff with the mind warping to actually break number 6 to find out why he resigned. They could have asked about his resignation. They could have used his resignation as a way to try prove that he's real at the agency he works for, but instead the plot of this episode decides to use it to find this guy so that the village can get the reverse process. For what purpose, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny that they do the process in order to find the reverse process.
Oh, geez. I hadn't even thought of that, actually.
Yeah, I mean, if this plan fails, then they're stuck.
Yeah, I mean, they're screwed. Number 6 is in the wrong body. Like, if this doesn't work, they've put a lot on the line for this.
We forgot to mention, the Colonel is in number 6's body, of course, but he's still strapped to the machine. Like, it looks like he's either just, like, taking a really long nap and is having a nightmare and kind of flinching about, or is just somehow, for some reason, stuck there.
It wasn't a very well thought out plan, really.
No.
It seems like the plan, made by someone who was very single-minded. Apparently, in the original draft of the script, they actually do play up that this number 2 is like the most arrogant number 2, and apparently in the original script, he even boasts to the butler that he'll be the only number 2 who stays there for his entire tenure and doesn't get replaced or something like that.
That was all probably cut for time or whatever.
Yeah, time, but we have enough time to repeat the opening title sequence in the middle of the episode and include a cold open. Like, yeah, cut for
The
time.
repeat of the title sequence was great.
It was all right. I mean, the best moment is when he throws open the doors and they just both look at each other confusedly because they have no idea who the other person is. Because it's not George Markstein or Patrick McGoohan.
Yeah, that is the best part. Speaking of George Markstein and Patrick McGoohan, who are actors in the title sequence, this episode had some actors in it who we need to go over for our Britain's 10 actors.
I love how your segues are always just, there were actors in this episode.
So I only looked up 3. There were a couple
Me
more.
too.
Yeah, okay. Wow.
Thank God.
All right, so who wants to start here? Do you want to start?
Well, you can take it away. Because I did the one actor on Torchwood this week.
Okay, yeah. So Clifford Evans played this week's number 2. He'd been in a lot of stuff that I didn't recognize. A Chance of Thunder, Striker of the Yard, The Avengers, who's in The Saint, he's in something called The Power Game. His last 2 roles, his second last role was in something called Dylan, and his last role was in something called Everyman, which, if you're an astute Prisoner viewer, you know that Everyman Productions was the company set up to create this show. Yep.
Interesting. Well, next character I have is Nigel Stark as the Colonel / new number 6. He was in The Great Escape, which I think was his biggest role before this movie, which is a Steve McQueen war movie. Yes Minister, Time. He was in Time Flight as Professor Hader. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, Softly Softly Task Force, The Doctors, Adamant Lives, The Avengers, Secret Agent / Danger Man, and The Saint. There's quite a lot of those early 60s British television shows.
Yeah, he was Watson in the 60s Sherlock Holmes. Oh shoot, I just deleted my notes.
Well,
oh, I can recover them.
Just shake your phone.
He was also in Knights of God, which is this like British Australian kids post-apocalyptic sci-fi TV show that I've watched like an episode of, weirdly enough. It's real low budget, like real low budget.
Like, doesn't even have a budget.
Yeah, kind of.
Great.
Oh yeah, I'm next.
Yeah,
so we have Hugo Schuster as Seltzman. He was actually German. And weirdly enough, we were saying in this episode, it's kind of implied that he, used to work for Nazi Germany. Well, Hugo Schuster, was German. And then after World War II, he moved to England, I believe, before or around when World War II was starting to go down. And then when the war ended, he went back to Germany, but apparently didn't feel comfortable in Germany, so came back to England. And
Interesting.
And he was in a lot of stuff. Out of the Unknown was one that I recognized. This was his last thing. He died in 1976, so not close to when this aired, but this was his last thing.
Interesting. Wow, that's actually... Guy lived a pretty interesting life, which is, I don't know, more than most on this show.
Yeah, I mean, he was born in I think it was 1886, so he lived through a lot.
Damn.
Lived for 90 years, so...
Well, weirdly enough, I actually looked up a different third actor than you.
Nice.
I looked up Xena Walker as Janet. I actually didn't recognize her in basically anything except for the ITV Playhouse and Callan. And that was it. I really didn't recognize anything else she's done.
Apparently she's pretty famous, though. The sites that I checked made it out like she was pretty famous.
Yeah, I mean, I got that impression too, but I really didn't recognize a lot of the stuff she was in, but maybe it's just the sheer volume of stuff she's in that made her famous.
Maybe she's just in like trash that nobody really likes anymore.
I mean, sure.
Like The Prisoner.
Like The Prisoner. Well, I mean, on that note, I don't have anything else actually really to talk
Yeah, neither
about.
do I.
Just a short little email from Boz. Do not forsake me, oh my darling, which he abbreviates as DNFMOMD. Definitely the fly in the ointment. A few good lines, but probably the worst episode in an otherwise great show. Big Pat was filming Ice Station Zebra, so they needed another actor to play number 6. Incidentally, Ice Station Zebra could be a Prisoner prequel, as he plays a similar character, maybe. Peace, love, and truth, Boz.
Yeah, guy's played one character for his entire career. He pulled it off. In shows and movies not created by him, not scripted by him, and not... Yeah, like, wow. I wonder if Judge Omar Noose is, like, what number 6 does after The Prisoner. Like, he escapes the village and becomes a judge in, like, Louisiana or wherever that movie took place.
I buy it. The Patrick McGoohan cinematic universe. I buy it. Yeah, why not?
That even fits with Patrick McGoohan's propensity to make his characters meta, because he actually did move to the US.
See? It all fits. All the pieces fit. It's all coming together. We're very close to cracking this wide open.
Yeah, don't be surprised if this podcast ends any week now, as we're taken away by government agents.
Well, you know, you're going to be thrown into an active volcano pretty soon. So,
oh, right.
Unfortunately, the podcast probably will end because of that. So,
yeah, you can keep the memory alive and keep it going without me.
Can you imagine if one of us just bites the dust? Like, we'd be left in this awkward position of having to decide to continue the podcast with another host or alone, or just ending the podcast. And the weirdest part is, if that happened right now, we have basically an entire season of Triple Play that could still go out.
Yeah, that's true. We could publish that posthumously. Oh, man.
Now, wouldn't that be
weird? It would be
weird?
so awkward, like one of us just amending and adding to the beginning of the episode, like, just keep in mind that, like, you know, insert either Dylan or Keon here is now dead.
This next season of Triple Play, I know this is a bit of a tangent, but the episode's pretty much over, so this is the last thing I'll talk about. But that season of Triple Play, which is going to come out right after this season of Inevitable finishes, is going to be so weird as a season, because half the episodes were recorded in pandemic lockdown, half of them were recorded before the pandemic even made it to America, so they're in person, and just everything about it is going to be wild. There are going to be references to events that are 6 months out of date now. So, anyway, I have nothing else to say, and I've gone over to my emails. So.
Yeah, same here.
So if you'd like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on The Prisoner coming to the end soon here. 1 month, actually, we'll be done with the show. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable, and find us on pretty much any podcasting platform at Inevitable, classic sci-fi podcast. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. Next time, we're going to be watching Living in Harmony. But until then, the end.